and we're live in a different location. And we're going to do a show via stream this week. Our first part of the stream is Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I'm not going to talk about the Chiefs and the Bengals quite yet, but first we have news. The Chiefs signed former Denver Bronco and ex-Charger Melvin Gordon. This move is okay. The Chargers, when they let go of Melvin Gordon a couple years ago, felt that Austin Eckler, amongst others, were better than him, and that he was not the same guy they drafted, which I don't know how to tell this any other way. You're never the same guy that you are at 24 than you are at 28, 30, especially as a running back. That never happens. The only 2, 3 players maybe that had success and were consistently better were maybe John Wiggins of the Washington Commanders, as he just had his best career in his 30s for whatever reason. Emmett Smith, Adrian Peterson, and even Frank Gore. There's a lot of running backs, they just don't get there. They don't get to that age because at that point you have some knee issues, you got problems because you've been hit so much, it just tires you out. And I think that's what the Chargers felt happened to Melvin Gordon. He was not the guy they drafted anymore, which no one is. The Broncos picked him up last year, said he was a leader at the end of the year, which I do agree with. This year he had fumbling issues. And yet we're now supposed to believe the Broncos to say Melvin Gordon's one of the reasons of our problems on offense. It's not. It's not at all. It's not at all because they still struggle. They don't score 16 points. That's all they can score, 16 points a game. I saw this last couple weeks. If the Broncos scored 19 points, which is on the lower echelon of where you want to score, they'd be 9-1 at that point. Now it's probably a different story. But that's still like they'd be 9-1 at that point of the year. After 10 weeks of playing a game, you've been 9-1 if you could just score 19 points. You can't do it for whatever reason. They blamed Melvin Gordon because he was fumbling. I get it. He had a fumble issue. But he's not the only reason. So the Chiefs decided to sign him as Clyde Edwards-Helaire a couple weeks ago. Got hurt. Isaiah Pacheco has been a really good momentum back when Edwards-Helaire has been out. So that makes sense. McKinnon, is a good player as well. So Melvin Gordon is mostly reassurance at that point. Jonathan Abrams has been in the news a lot the last couple weeks. And the Packers have released him after 20 days with the organization. Normally, when you hear a release happen 20 days after the fact, that means either he was an ego problem or we didn't have anything for him to do. And I think it's more about him being an immature player. As this whole new system for him. You get drafted by Mike Mayock and John Gruden and that whole regime to now have a new coach with a new organization, essentially. You gotta grow up. And you're asking a lot. You see it a lot more in basketball and baseball, but it happens in football quite often as well. You're giving these young players a lot of money, especially first round picks, which is what Abrams was. You're giving them millions of dollars as a first round pick to a guy who's early 20s and done maybe 2 to 4 years in college, and that's it. Because a lot of these players go from the draft, they go to the draft, get drafted, because their whole thing is, we lived in such a bad neighborhood, or we didn't have a lot of money. I need to get that money as fast as possible. And that's what happens. And I'm not saying that that happened to Jonathan Abrams. I'm not for sure. But I'm telling you this. I do think Abrams is a good player. The question is, if he does get another chance, who's willing to spend the time in bringing him along as a young player? That's the real question. The Patriots inked a young player in, I apologize if I pronounce this wrong, July Tavai. You give him a 2-year, $4.4 million contract extension. Tavai has been a key member of that Patriot defense, which is, I think, underrated. They struggle on offense. They don't score. Think of it like this. Think of it as going in a car and being able to drive it to the gas station, but not have the money to put the gas in, or not be able to pour gas into your car for whatever reason. That's the Patriots in a nutshell. They can get you there, where they'll play really well on defense. They can get you there, but the offense has to actually do it. And then the offense just fizzles out. As that happened in the game against Buffalo, which we will talk about. But that's just the way it is. Eagles cornerback C.J. Gardner-Johnson has a lacerated kidney. Now, they use the word indefinite. Everyone else thinks that means a month. That does not mean a month. Indefinite means we have no idea. We got no idea. And if we play a team that has the weaponry that we are any bit afraid of, we may lose because we don't have the weaponry. And not having C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was traded in the offseason to the Eagles, that's a big loss because he's a good player. He was a corner, now playing safety. So you know he can cover if he absolutely has to. But you know also, if he just has to roam around, he'll be all right. Because he did that before, and a lot of these organizations are looking for guys like that, where they can find a corner who can play safety, a linebacker that can play pass rusher like Michael Parsons is, wide receivers that can play running back like Deebo Samuel. They're looking for guys that running backs that can play wide receiver, which is not as bizarre, but still one of those things. If that's new to the NFL, you're still trying to find those guys because those guys, if they're interchangeable and we can do different things, if injuries do occur, we're not, we got to go sign somebody, we got to do this, we got to do that. You don't have to worry. The Bears safety Eddie Jackson's season is over as he has a significant Liz Frank injury that he tried to play through. and then he got hurt in the game against the New York Jets. Doesn't work, and not having him out there is a key issue because he was having one of his best years. He hadn't had an interception in 2 years. This year, he has 4. So he's a big part of their defense. Jackson was also one of the players that spoke out at when Roquan Smith and before that, Robert Quinn were traded. He was like, "Are we trying to win? Are we trying to lose? Just let me know. Because if we're trying to win, yet we're getting rid of all these players, why am I here? Why don't I get that chance to get ousted and leave? Why don't I get that?" And I think that's what he was trying to tell himself, and it doesn't make a lot of sense by any means of why he's still there. Because he's a good player. I was wondering why that would be it, because I understand Roquan Smith was in the contract year, Eddie Jackson isn't, but even Robert Quinn wasn't. We'll see what happens in the offseason. Deshaun Watson was reinstated this past week, and a bunch of his accusers decided to show up to the game against between the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans, to which when Watson headed onto the field, there was a lot of booing initially. And he didn't play well, particularly. He hasn't played in 2 years. What do you expect? But Deshaun, in a way, I feel bad for him. I understand what he did was wrong. I'm not disputing that at all. But at some point, we gotta go and say the NFL went and gave him this sentence. And he did it. And there was no distraction about it. He didn't try and keep doing it, at least to our knowledge. And the NFL said, okay, he's ready to come back. Because the NFL would have said, no, he's not ready, and we're going to hold him out the remainder of the year. They could have done that. They didn't. So I don't see that. I think the NFL feels that he has done what he had to do, and let's see what happens. The Falcons also in that, actually, before I get to that, the accusers also plan to make a statement. Which, why are you showing up? You only started to talk when Watson was close to coming back. That's my whole issue with this again. Anytime Watson's either gotten a little closer to what the NFL was agreeing on in terms of suspension, you started to talk. Otherwise, you would. You were nowhere to be found. Now he's starting to talk. Now he's starting to go and do these things. Now I'm going to go. Now I'm going to go start talking. Now we're going to go to this game. Now we're going to have a planned statement. Come on. At what point does this not end? We can move forward. Finally, the Falcons ruled out Kyle Pitts for the remainder of the season. He had a knee issue, torn MCL. He's done for the year, which is a big loss for the Falcons. Next up is Jimmy Garoppolo left the game against the Miami Dolphins, in which the Dolphins were just getting destroyed. He had a foot injury that has now been explained by Mike Florio as a broken foot, and he's done for the year. A big loss for them as Brock Purdy had to finish the game. He is what they call Mr. Irrelevant. Mr. Irrelevant is the last pick of the draft, and we're just throwing a dart at the board, seeing what hits. And that's what you do most of the draft in the day 3 because you don't know. Now, a lot of these guys do get 5th, 6th round, and you somewhat know. Like, for an example, there's a lot of players, you get to that 4th, 5th, 6th round, like, you don't know what's going to happen. The Cowboys picked Dak Prescott. They didn't expect him to start a game in his career. He's now the starter for the Dallas Cowboys. He has a big-time contract because of what he was able to do. But they needed to find it because of the injury to Tony Romo. They didn't know before. Now they do. Damone Clark had spinal fusion surgery late March. Everyone thought, hey, he's a second-round draft choice, was what he was opened as, and he was probably the third best linebacker in that draft. He is now playing. He was drafted in the 5th round. There was no idea of how that was going to happen. There's a lot of players that happens to, but then there's a lot more players that it never happens to. The point I'm trying to make is injuries do occur, and you just got to deal with it. And Brock Purdy, a 7th-round draft choice, as I said, they throw a dart at the wall and see what sticks. And whenever it hits, you're going to have to deal with. And that they chose Brock Purdy. Next up, Odell Beckham Jr. is meeting with the Dallas Cowboys today and tomorrow. That's not been disclosed fully, but the itinerary for OBJ and the Cowboys is this. He is meeting with the Joneses today. Tonight, he and I believe a couple players, I'm not exactly sure, are going to a Mavericks game. And tomorrow, Tuesday morning, visit the players and the coaches. They're gonna have him talk to Dak Prescott, talk to some wide receivers, talk to Michael Parsons, talk to CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz, whoever they gotta talk to, who have been also very key in trying to get him to go to the Cowboys. Then he's gonna talk to the coaches, Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy, respectfully, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys try and get him there. Now, according to Odell and Jay Glazer, amongst a few others, the plan is after the visit, Odell's going to go home, consult his family on where he should go, and then make the decision midweek, which I would assume would be probably Thursday. Which I know his family really loves the Dallas Cowboys, and they've always said that they wanted to see Odell with the Dallas Cowboys. Financially, how is that done? I don't know. Because you're now talking about, hey, you don't just want to be here a year. You want to be here multiple years. We got to figure this out. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But that's the itinerary. The Bills had a very similar itinerary. So did the Giants. I think the Giants are out of it because the Giants have lost 2 of their last 3 and tied against Washington yesterday. The Bills, I mean, that's probably the best bet unless someone makes a quick call to get a visit. You know, otherwise I don't see it happen. I think it's either between Bills and the Cowboys, and I think that's what it should be anyway. The Cowboys, though, had a it didn't go all perfect yesterday for the Cowboys, as we will disclose. But Anthony Brown, their starting corner, tore his Achilles yesterday. He's done for the year. Anthony Brown started every game. The one issue to Anthony Brown was he was a smaller corner, about 5'11", and when you're going against a wide receiver who's 6'4", that puts a lot of strain because you're 5 inches or shorter than the wide receiver. That makes it harder. So your technique has to be perfectly sound. I'm interested in see what the Cowboys do. Do they go sign somebody? Do they go and say, you know what? We're going to deal with it the best we can? At first, I thought it was a sprain. And I was like, well, maybe if he's gone 2 weeks, The next 2 games for the Cowboys are Texans and Jacksonville. If we can get him for Philadelphia or even for the Titans, we'll be okay. That's not gonna happen, obviously. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the Cowboys do. I really think they'll go and make a move. Depending on what that move is, we'll see. The Panthers have decided to release Baker Mayfield. That will happen today. Mayfield's been with the organization for about 5 months now. It's not gone well. It's not. You trade for him. The offense is abysmal. And think about this team next year. It could easily be a toss-up for the quarterbacks right now. There was 4 quarterbacks on this roster to start the preseason. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, PJ Walker, Matt Corral. Not necessarily in that order. And in the regular season, there's been 3 starters for you because Matt Corral got hurt. I wouldn't be surprised from the way the season has gone that by next year you may have 2 of these quarterbacks on that roster and maybe PJ Walker and Matt Corral. Sam Darnold might not be on this roster. Baker Mayfield is definitely not on this roster. The one thing for Baker Mayfield is now you have a team. Is now you can go to a team that thinks that you can use your abilities the best they can. Maybe they can, maybe they can't, but you got to figure that out. And you also got to get to a point of your career of maybe I'm just a backup, or maybe I'm not fit to be in the NFL. You got to get to that point. You got to keep the faith that you can be, but you also got to get to that point of, maybe it's just not going to happen. Lamar Jackson and Trevor Lawrence both went down with injuries yesterday. Both to their knee. Lamar kind of got spun down and grabbed onto his knee. His head coach John Harbaugh said it's, quote, days to weeks, which, what does that mean? An MRI is going to confirm the severity of it. Tyler Huntley stepped in and did a pretty good job. We'll see what happens. But not having Lamar, that definitely ruins Baltimore's chances. And then for Jacksonville, who weren't really going anyways this year, now you have a question. Who's the quarterback that we can play? Because we got rid of Nick Foles. You got rid of him. We got rid of Gardner Minshew last year. We don't have anyone with starter experience that I can think of off the top of my head. So that's another question. And finally, for this part, the Packers now lead the all-time wins category with win number 787 against the Bears, who held the record since, if I remember correctly, 1921. And our game recap part of it, the Bills beat the New England Patriots 34-10, and 24-10, excuse me. In a game that the Patriots just didn't show up. The offense was terrible. They don't throw the ball down the field. Which with the Bills and with their banged up secondary, you could do. But you haven't done it. That's concerning. And then Mac Jones called Matt Patricia out about, hey, let's go deep a couple times. I don't want to be so conservative. We're losing games because we're being conservative. Let's go deep. We'll see if he listens. Defense, they didn't play well, and Josh Allen just went right up and down the field on them. So that's disappointing. Next up, Vikings hold on to beat the Jets 27-22 in a game that if I'm the Vikings, I'm concerned. And if I'm Vikings fans, I'm concerned. Not the fact that we won. That's not the problem. That's the good thing. The problem is we gave up 500 yards of offense against a team with a backup quarterback. That's a problem because it doesn't get easier for the Vikings. It really doesn't. Because you're going to go against teams that are going to be able to beat you if they can't. The thing about the Jets, it's the one problem the Jets have. They're not great in the red zone. They got there 6 times. They scored 1 touchdown in the red zone. Come on. If you're the Vikings, you can't afford to get 500 yards because you're going to go against these teams, the 49ers, the Cowboys, even the Eagles. You're not going to win those games because you can't stop anything. Like, you're good in the red zone, but at what point do you go and say, we got to figure this out? We don't have a defense. We can't just hope that Jefferson, Thielen, Osborne, Cook, Madison, Hawkinson just bail us out every time. Because we know with Kirk Cousins that's not going to happen. But if we just hope that Jefferson, Thielen, Hawkinson, Madison, Cook, Osborne, and Cousins bail us out every time, that's never going to happen. Because in your defense is going to be worse for wear for that. You went against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago and got steamrolled because the Cowboys went and initially locked up Jamar Chase and then brought pressure so Cousins had nowhere to go. So he had to take the sack. That's the concern if I'm the Vikings is we got to figure out a defense because if we go against a team that has offense and can score and can move the ball and be efficient, we're gonna lose. You almost lost to the Patriots on Thanksgiving. You almost lost to the Bills. You got demoralized by the Cowboys, and you now almost lost to the Jets. You got to figure that out. Of the last 4 games you played, the Bills, the Cowboys, the last 4 or 5 games that you played have all been close, or you've lost. You got to figure that out. Next up, 49ers beat the Dolphins 33-17 in a game I thought was going to be a terrific game. I was like, this game's going to be awesome. I wouldn't be surprised if this game ends 40-37. And it wasn't that close. Jimmy Garoppolo did get hurt. Brock Purdy came in the game and played fairly well. But now you're going to go against a team, and I don't think people understand this. When you're a backup, there's not a lot of tape on you because you consistently get better. Okay? The concern with, like, when the Dak Prescott got hurt in week 1 and Cooper Rush came in and then just started to play, not necessarily like he was destroying the league, but just started to play efficient football and allow the defense to win. That's what happened. Now, it helped that their schedule allowed that. That they didn't have to face anyone until they faced the Eagles, and they almost won that game. So You're lucky on that front, but that happens. That's the nature of the beast in a way. The 49ers, they're in a situation of we are the third team in the conference right now. And right now, we have 8 wins with 5 to go. Seattle is back in it after the tie between the Giants and Washington. And we do have to face them again. And then on top of all that, we got to face Tampa next week. Like, if I'm Brock Purdy, you know what Todd Bowles is going to try and do. He's going to go after you, and you're going to have to stand in there and try and deliver. We'll see what happens, but that's a concern if Brock Purdy has to be back there and there's nobody. Because the Cowboys, you face a team like the Cowboys or the Vikings or someone that can get pressure, it's going to be really difficult. Next up, Bengals beat the Chiefs 27-24 in a game that the Chiefs just looked off in that second half. They looked off. They looked like everything that they were going to do got much harder. It was much harder to do. Much harder, much harder. And as the game progressed, it got worse. They missed a field goal that ended up being the decider, if I can speak. The decider was the missed field goal. But, and everyone's like, well, put the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands. Yes, I get it. But with the way the game was going, you couldn't probably do it. You weren't having a whole lot of success. Mahomes was getting hit from every angle. And it was a great game plan by the Bengals. That was a great game plan by them. That's how you have to play the Chiefs, is if you can hang around long enough and then explode in the final quarter, maybe you have something. And finally, the Cowboys beat the Colts 54-19 in a game that was 21-19 at the end of the third quarter, and then the Cowboys just went on a rampage. The concern I have for the Colts is this. You got put in a fourth quarter body bag. Okay? You could not beat them on the ground. Jonathan Taylor had 82 yards. That's it. And you had some deep shots. You took them and you scored on them. But otherwise, you didn't do it at all. You didn't take any deep shot. And especially when Anthony Brown got hurt, I thought that's what they were going to do. And they started to not do it. And they tried to run the ball, and the Cowboys just kept slowing them down. The longest game that Jonathan Taylor had was 19 yards. They're not going to win many games. Your defense is good. They helped you in that game. Stephon Gilmore had an interception. They almost had another interception from Rodgers. Didn't happen, but when that happens, and now you allow them to go and you allow the Cowboys to keep the football, and then get pressure on Matt Ryan, who really can't move. He has no ability up the middle. You're not afraid of him when he runs. Like that can't happen if you're the Colts. And the Cowboys in that fourth quarter scored 33 points. That's the most that they've scored in a quarter in franchise history. The last 5 games, the Cowboys have scored 199 points. Like that's amazing. And hats off to the defense, who played well, had 5 turnovers. Malik Hooker became the first player since, I believe, 1980 to have an interception and a fumble that was returned for a touchdown in the same game. That never happened. That doesn't happen. But a great game plan by Dan Quinn. I really think it took effect when they started to blitz. But it got ugly real fast in that fourth quarter. And there was a lot of close players looking up like, this game was close at some point. It was. Just a quarter ago, and then it started to get worse. And it could have been worse, too, because the Cowboys had an extra point that was blocked. It could have been worse. And that's the crazy thing is the Cowboys, if they would have played, like, if they would have played in the fourth quarter the whole game, you're talking about they could have scored 70. Never mind 60. They could have scored 70. That's how good they played in that fourth quarter. Scored 33 points. They just went after them. They're like, okay, yeah, we let you hang around enough. Now let's go away and fight them. Here we go. That's what happened. Moving on to preview of Week 14, our regular season record, including that is 36-33. Let's see if we can keep that positive record. The Saints face the Buccaneers on Monday night in Week 13. The Bucs are favored by 3. I'm taking the Bucs here because if you're the Cowboys or any team like that, you want the Bucs to be third because it doesn't look like the Cowboys are going to catch the Eagles. So if you want the best chance scenario, you got to try and have the Bucs be third. But if you're the Bucs, this is your chance. This is your chance because you also face the 49ers now. After this game, next week you face the 49ers. This is your chance. Get some wins. Get the head-to-head. Now, let's see what we can do. But I'm taking the Bucs. I just don't trust the Saints. But I know it's going to be a good game. Bucs win. Favored by 3. I think that's what they get. It's at 27-24. Bucs. Week 14, Texans at Cowboys. Cowboys are favored at this point in the game, at this point in the week, by 17. That's a lot. But that's also because the Texans don't have anybody. I'm taking the Cowboys. Will they cover? I don't know. But I'm taking the Cowboys. This is the Cowboys' chance. You got the AFC South. See what you can do. Cowboys win. I think they will cover. They'll win 38-10. Next up, Vikings versus Lions. Lions are favored by 1. I have this on here because I don't understand the Vikings. And the Lions score points. And Dan Campbell has this team fighting for playoffs, which no one thought could be feasible. And yet here we go. I'm taking the Lions. I think the Lions can beat them. Close game, though. It will be 30-28. Next up, Eagles versus Giants. +7 for the Giants. Giants tie with Washington. Again, you're in this division in the NFC East. If the Giants faced the Eagles twice in December and in January, the Cowboys would love it if the Giants beat the Eagles once. They'd love it. Because that means come Christmas Eve, that game has much more implications than it already does. So my heart is saying, yes, I need the Giants to win. I'd want Giants to win. But the Eagles are going to win 20-17. Next up, the Jets versus the Bills. Bills are favored by 9.5. I'm taking the Jets. I don't trust the Bills up front. Bills will cover this. So I don't have the Jets winning the game. I would want them to win, but they'll cover the spread, I think. Bills win, but Jets will cover. Bills win 24-20. Next up, Bucks vs 49ers. 49ers are favored by 7. That will get bid down. If Deebo Samuel plays, we'll see. He played yesterday. And if Trent Williams plays, he played yesterday, but we'll see. I think the Bucks are going to have something up for Brock Purdy. I'm taking the Bucks. I think the Bucks just get on a roll, then they find a way to win. Bucks win 28-24. Next up, Dolphins versus Chargers. Chargers are getting +3. Dolphins are going to just destroy them. The Dolphins, if they would have beaten the 49ers yesterday, would have been top seed in the division and would have had, at least at this point, would have been they wouldn't just be top seed in the division. They'd be top seed in the conference, and at this point, everything would have gone through Miami, which is a hard place to play, especially in the winter. Dolphins are going to win this. I just don't trust the Chargers at all. They don't play well. Dolphins win. They get a bounce back game, 31-14. And final game would be Patriots at Cardinals on Monday night of Week 14. Excuse me. The Cardinals are getting +1. Patriots are going to win this game. The Cardinals aren't very good. Kyler Murray's probably going to play, but Cardinals are not very good. They make a lot of mistakes. Patriots going to have opportunities to win this game. They will. Patriots win 21-14.